Federal investigators are approaching the mass shooting in San Bernardino yesterday that left 14 dead and 21 wounded as a potential terrorism case. Syed Rizwan Farouk reportedly had contact with people with extremist Islamic views. News reports say he and his wife Tafshin Malik had also traveled to the Middle East recently. Farouk was of Pakistani descent and his wife was born in Pakistan. Joining me to talk about the shooting and the investigation is Dipka Gupta, a terrorism expert. Deepak, both Farouk and Malik had traveled to the Middle East recently. Farouk, the husband, was said to be in touch with people who had suspected terrorism ties. They had a vast arsenal of weaponry. You're an investigator on this case. How are you treating it? What are you looking for?
As far as I'm concerned, it seems like there was a huge amount of planning that went before the actual events. You don't gather that kind of an arsenal. You don't make that many pipe bombs without some pre-thought, without some planning. The question is, where does this plan come from? Is it as a part of a larger scheme that perhaps some other group leader had conceived? Were they part of that larger picture, or was it just their decision? And that is the most important question for me.
So again, let's make it clear, we don't know if there's a terrorism connection. At the same time, but if there is, at the same time, Farouk was described as co-workers as living the American dream. He and his wife had been married for 2 years. They had a 6-month-old daughter. He had a good job. How do you go from that life to a massacre? Where's the disconnect?
There is a huge disconnect. If you look at the annals of suicide bombers or people who take this kind of actions, such as it's called the fidain type of action, where you don't plan to commit suicide, but you go there to sacrifice your life. Now, if you look at that, we know only one case, at least I know only one case, and that was in Amman, Jordan, in 2005, where Sajid Mubarak, she went with her husband to a wedding party in a Radisson hotel, and her husband blew himself up. She tried to pull the cord, it didn't blow up, but she was in her 40s. She didn't, as far as we know, she didn't have any children. So having a husband and a 6-month-old daughter makes it an incredibly unique case in the history of terrorism.
So that was in Amman, Jordan. If it turns out that these two were inspired by Islamic extremism, and yesterday this happened on American soil, is that a game changer?
It's not a game changer because we know it has happened before. We have seen the Boston marathon bombing. We have seen Major Nadal Hassan, who killed 9 people in Fort Hood. You know, we have seen many examples of this. And this is not a game changer in the sense that it's something absolutely new. No, it is part of an ongoing process.
You've studied terrorism groups. How do you stop people from being radicalized?
It is impossible because we are all seeking our collective identities. It's not just who we are as individuals, but we have this deep, deep desire to belong to a group and to do things that in our opinion, would be the most advantageous or the most altruistic thing for the group. And this is a typical human emotion.
Very quickly, the shooters were Muslim. I know American Muslims are deeply concerned about Islamophobia. How does a society guard against that?
It's very difficult because your anger, your dislike for the acts, they take over and they cloud our judgment. We start thinking everybody along the same line. But does it make any sense if somebody from another culture, another complexion, carries out a heinous attack? Does it paint the entire group by their actions? That's what we have to remember.
We've got to close it there. Dipka Gupta, thanks so much for coming on the program.
You're welcome.